Thanks, Emily. Good evening, everybody. My name's Laura, and I'm the back half of SteLa Tandem, and we've got my husband Stevie here as well, who's the front half, who'll be coming up to answer questions in a bit. So our talk tonight is on how to plan a record-breaking tandem ride around the world. I should point out we haven't actually broken any records yet, so you might want to follow us along the way and see how we get along before you make your verdict. But we're about halfway through the planning process now, so hopefully you can kind of see how far we've come and judge for yourselves. So where to begin? We looked at the current circumnavigation records around the world. Of course, we have Mark Beaumont, who initially went around the world unsupported in 194 days, and then went back with a full support crew of 40 people and a £250,000 budget, and amazingly went around the world on a bicycle in 78 days and a bit. Jenny Graham is the absolutely fabulous female record holder, and she completed the circumnavigation in 124 days in an unsupported ride as well, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And then Kat and Raz here are the not only the female record holders, but they're also the kind of overall tandem record holders, and the tandem record now stands at 263 days. Guinness actually kind of differentiates between male, female and mixed couples. So we will be looking at the mixed couple record of a target of 180 days. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we plan to do that. So the next step is to select our tandem crew. And as I say, on the front is Stevie. The front half of the tandem is known as the captain. So he first rode his first over 100-mile ride aged 11 years old. He did his first 400-kilometre Audax aged 16. And Audax is the Association for Long Distance Cycling in the UK, which does kind of like time rides. It actually was comes over from France, hence why we're kind of switching between miles and kilometres a bit here. For 400 kilometres is like one of their kind of quintessential distances that you have to complete in a set time. He was also fourth in the national 24-hour time trials, cycling 725 kilometres in 24 hours. And he finished in the top 5% of the Paris-Paris Audaxes and was one of the top 10 riders back in London, Edinburgh, London as well. He's ridden from Derby to Land's End to John O'Groats and Derby back again in 9.5 days in an unsupported ride. And we suspect this is the fastest known time, although it's kind of impossible to verify that. He's lost count of his mileage, and he's well on the way back from the moon, having cycled over 250,000 miles in his lifetime. So I think he's a pretty strong candidate to have on the front of the tandem there. This is me. I'm on the back half. I'm also known as the stoker. I met Stevie in 2015, and we got married in 2018. I'd always been a keen commuter. I went everywhere on my bicycle already, and I'd managed a very slow 100-mile ride along towpaths before I met Steve, and I thought that was quite an epic trip. I'd never ridden a road bike before, and this is me on my first road bike ride, which Steve bought me for a birthday present, so I was not quite as experienced as him at this point. And then I conquered the Rhinos and Hard Knot passes both ways in the same ride on a heavyweight hybrid bicycle, and this kind of gave me the taste of hills. I didn't really realise at the time that these are two of the hardest climbs in the UK. I just kind of went and did it. I started riding Audaxes, and I completed what's known as a Super Randonneur series on a tandem in my first year. A Super Randonneur series is a 200-kilometre ride, a 300-kilometre ride, a 400-kilometre ride, and a 600-kilometre ride in the same season. And then I went back and did one on a solar bicycle in my second year, just to prove that I was pushing the pedals. I've stoked Stevie around the infamous Neil Pennines 1,000-kilometre Audax, which has about 4,000 feet of climbing in 72 hours. And I've also ridden the Paris-Brest-Paris Audax, only to finish narrowly out of time after illness halfway round, but I refused to give up. I was going to get to that finish line no matter what it took. And then I arranged holidays, like riding from Land's End to John O'Groats in 10 days on a fully laden tandem, and camping and hiking our way along the Pennine Way, which is 270 miles in 13 days. So I think it's safe to say I've kind of got a bit of a taste for adventure. And no, I do not have my feet up on the back. Thank you very much. So the next step is to select our machine. Tandems are weird and wonderful beasts, and I think it takes a kind of special couple to get on one, as Jason and Laura are showing here as well. They go along the flat like a dream. They fly downhill on the right road surface, but they don't like going uphill very much. Having said that, it is possible to get a tandem up to the top of Mont Ventoux with camping weight. And of course, they are slightly longer than your average bicycle too, which presents its own logistical challenges. And one of the challenges we've had to bear in mind is how we're going to get this bike on an aeroplane, because unfortunately you can't cycle on solid earth all the way around the world. So thanks to the tandem shop in Telford and the generous sponsorship of Co-Motion Cycles, we have a whole new bike on order, which will be a coupled tandem, which has special links in the frame. So we'll be able to split the bike in half, essentially, and it's then able to go into 2 bike boxes, which could then be loaded onto an aeroplane as 2 separate halves. The next step was to select kind of the rest of our kit and our kind of support level. Weight is obviously key, and as much as I'm quite used to doing the weekly shop on the back of the bike, here we're going to have to be really conscious of everything that we're taking with us. We're going to have to be very selective that every piece of kit we take has to have a use. We considered camping versus bivvying versus staying in hotels, and as much as bivvying would have been the most lightweight option, we kind of felt that a combination of lightweight camping and staying in hotels would give us the most options in terms of where we can kind of stop and finish day to day, but also kind of keeping a level of comfort too, because recovery is going to be very important on this trip. We've looked at kind of making use of what we have already versus getting sponsorship and new kit, and we have a lot of kit already for already the adventures we do, but we're going to get through a lot of kit on this trip. So for example, we expect to get through 12 sets of tyres, 12 inner tubes, potentially 10 chains, and to even take all the kind of the bike kit with us, we're looking at having kit drops around the world to pick up parts as we go along, and it probably doesn't even bear to think how many pairs of shorts we're going to get through. So we're kind of looking for sponsorship for kit, especially at the moment we're looking for sponsorship for camping kit, and we're kind of quite used to camping out in weird and wonderful situations. Here in France, camped behind her road sign, and just at the bottom left there is a man curled up next to his tandem in the back of a transit van. We need to make sure we've got the right kit as well. We need to make sure it's tried and tested. We used to be quite adaptable. On the top there, I've got a pair of tubular medical stockings on instead of the leg warmers I've forgotten, but we really need to make sure we've got the right kit for the job. So we'll be doing obviously a number of training rides and kind of one kind of long stint to make sure everything we've got has the right usage. Next step is to select our route, and Mark Beaumont and Jenny Graham both have their around the world routes online on Strava and with Ride with GPS. They both went quite a direct route, trying to maximise their time and distance going through kind of Europe and then through Russia and Asia. Mark Beaumont had a vehicle support with him all the time to kind of give him some protection on the roads. But if you listen or hear about Jenny Graham's trip, she actually had periods where she was very scared of the lorries and felt in quite a dangerous situation with the Russian roads. And as much as we're willing to put everything we have into this trip, we can't be kind of at the point where we're endangering our lives, especially on a heavy beast like the tandem. So we've had to consider that quite carefully. We've had to consider the fact that, as UK nationals, we won't be able to get visas to places like Iran. The military coup in Myanmar, for example, as well, has put a bit of a spanner in those works. And of course, there's the COVID situation, which we're monitoring very carefully as well. So this is our kind of draft route at the moment. We are planning to start at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. We'll head south through Chechnya, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, and then Bulgaria, through Istanbul and into Turkey. We'll then go through the north of Turkey, up through Georgia, a little bit of Russia, through Kazakhstan, and then get to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, where we'll then fly to New Delhi in India. Ride through India to Kolkata, and then fly to Bangkok in Thailand, travel through Thailand, Malaysia, down to Singapore, and then fly to Australia, where we'll travel the south coast of Australia. We'll ride up through both islands of New Zealand before flying to Vancouver in Canada. We'll cross the States over to New York, fly to Lisbon, up through Portugal, Spain, France, and back to the Brandenburg Gate in Germany. Easy as that. One of the conditions of Guinness World Records is that we have to finish where we started. They have a number of other conditions as well. So we have to travel a total of 18,000 miles on the bicycle. We have to have a total trip distance of over 24,000 miles. That includes our flights as well. And once we start, the clock never stops. So all our flight times are included too. So that takes us from a 100-mile average a day to more like 110 miles averaging a day. We also have to make sure we travel in the same direction all the time. So we can't kind of go backwards through a degree of longitude. And we need to go through 2 antipodal points of, for us, are Wellington in New Zealand and Madrid in Spain. So if we tick all those boxes, hopefully we shall get the record. But yeah, there could be a few spanners in the works. So especially the COVID situation, we're keeping a watch on closely. We're very grateful to have some sponsored subscriptions to Ride with GPS and also to Komoot. And both these have been quite good tools for planning. And then when we're on the road as well, we'll be using Epic Ride Weather to kind of assess the weather conditions day to day. And that brings us on to how we're going to kind of select our dates for traveling, because the climate's going to play a big part in this. We're very used to winter miles and winter training, and also cycling in the heat of the day as well. But both of these have pros and cons. If we're in very cold climates, for example, we'll have to carry more layers of clothing, potentially thick sleeping bags. And if we're in the heat, we need to make sure we've got enough provision for fluids. But on balance, we're kind of opting for the warmer temperatures to try and carry less kit with us on the bike. This does mean we've got a bit of a trade-off with the monsoon season. So we will be in some countries in monsoon season, but that's kind of part and parcel of trying to plan where we are at every stage along the way. I've had to factor into getting time off work as well. I'm very lucky that my employer has been massively supportive and given me a sabbatical to do this trip, but we have a set time frame in which we can do the ride. So our start date is Sunday the 5th of June 2022 at the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. Anybody wants to come join us, you're more than welcome. So yeah. And then the next bit is considering the challenges we'll face along the way. So almost kind of a bit of a risk assessment, as it were. One of the big problems could be mechanicals on the road. And we're very lucky in the fact that Stevie is a very proficient bike mechanic. We're outside a bike shop here fitting a new wheel on Land's End John O'Groats, but apart from that, I can't remember the last time we've actually used a bike shop. So hopefully most things we can fix on the road. The bicycle itself will be steel framed, so that will be kind of weldable anywhere around the world as well. We'll have to consider our training too. We have to fit that around day-to-day lives, but this is something we're kind of used to doing already. So on the top there, that's us commuting to and from the airport on a hire tandem in Mallorca, just to get a few more miles in. And at the bottom, that's our annual riding home for Christmas to my parents, who live about 200 kilometers away, which is good fun as well. I mentioned before, tandems aren't that keen on going uphill, so we will experience some gradients in our route, and we'll have to factor that into our plans, that some days might be slower than others if we are having to climb a lot. And as well, altitude can be an issue. That's me looking like I'm about to pass out at the top of the Col de Galibier. I'm not great at altitude, and I think in the States we will be kind of reaching some quite high heights, so I have to factor that in too. Another consideration is electrics and charging, as well as routing, phone, social media, bits and bobs like that. We will need to prove a solid GPS track around the world, otherwise our record might not be verified. So we need to have 2, if not 3 GPS devices running at any time and keep them charged. And we'll be using a combination, I think, of solar and battery packs to do that. We've considered dynamo issues, dynamo options, but you can get quite a lot of issues with those. So I think we'll probably be going down the solar and battery pack route. Nutrition is obviously going to be key. I think we will be eating locally like we were here with this Cornish steak and mushroom pie, but I think we can expect our diet to be a lot more varied around the world, and we'll essentially have to pick up food where we can and adapt to the different countries and cultures we're in. And then linked to this is hygiene, and as much as we're quite happy to venture off into a field with a shovel, we need to prioritise our hygiene, because if we do get sick, if that takes a day out of a trip, that's over 100 miles that we're going to need to make up at a later date. So the next bit was to find ways to shout about it. We're on pretty much all the social medias, apart from TikTok, because I just don't really understand that yet. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have our own website. I'm trying to blog at least once a month. I've set up our own podcast as well, which is called Stoked to Be Here, which is great fun. We've had some fantastic guests on that already. I've got my own YouTube channel, and I'm trying to learn how to work an action camera on the back of the tandem, and there's a few rides up and upcoming. And now that things are starting finally to open up a bit as well, we're able to speak to friends and family a lot more about this too, which is a great opportunity to kind of build the excitement a lot more. As we get down the line, of course, we'll be approaching local media too, so the press, the papers as well. And you could say, why bother with all the promo, all the social media? We could just get on a bike and ride around the world. But we've already got some fantastic sponsors for kit on board, which is really exciting. But potentially even more importantly than that is that we will be raising money for charity along the way too. So we'll be raising money for Mind, the mental health charity, Vet Life, which is a charity supporting the veterinary profession, particularly with mental health issues. And as I work as part of the veterinary profession, it's very important to me. And Sustrans as well, because we'd just love to see more people on bicycles, and they do great work with the National Cycle Network too. So the more people that follow us around the world, the more money we can hopefully raise for these fantastic charities. We're going to look to draw on our previous experiences, and we've got a fair few of these from, that's us at the top of Rosedale Chimney on the Mille Pennines ride, about 3/4 of the way through after about 3 hours sleep, looking particularly shattered. But we've kind of learned to kind of go through those barriers on some of these rides. Land's End on a Groats, we learned so much on that ride as a kind of camping and bike packing trip. We're very used to cycling through the night, all hours, all weathers, and we've kind of got a lot of resilience built around that. And I'm very much used to having my own car park picnic as well. So we're quite adaptable to different circumstances and different situations. We've got kind of a few sayings that always kind of seem to come up when we're on these long rides and big challenges. I must admit the top one's a Mark Bowman one, which is just ride the road in front of you. We cannot be focused on riding 18,000 miles around the world. We're just going to have to focus on every day, every mile in front of us to get us through. A couple of personal ones we always say on our Audax is it's just a trip around the lanes, or less than the fixed 50. We have a 25-mile route we routinely do around the lanes, and another route we call the fixed 50, which may be ridden on fixed bicycle or not. But if we get near to a control or an end of a ride, we can go, oh, do you know what, it's less than a trip around the lanes, or do you know, I've only got the fixed 50 to go, and that really kind of fixates in our mind what that distance is, and it gives us quite a good sticking point for what we've got left. You may have heard it before, but eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty, rest before you're tired. I'm pretty sure we're going to be all of these three things at some point on this trip, probably all of them at once at some point. But it's going to be very important to keep our nutrition, keep our hydration on board, but also our rest and recovery too. This isn't going to be a race where we're riding 100 miles as fast as we can every day. It's going to be probably more about the recovery every day than it is about the actual cycling, because if we can't get the rest and recovery day to day, we're not going to be able to keep going for 180 days. Everything is temporary. Every big ride we do has a low point, has a big dip, and you just think, I cannot go on for another mile. But it's surprising the amount of rides where we've been in the rain at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's been awful, and you just don't want to do another pedal stroke. And then a few hours later, the sun comes up, it's on your back, and you think, wow, what was I thinking? I can keep going all day. So it's kind of realizing that those dips are natural and normal, and things do change. No faff has been said a lot recently, and it's going to be key. We have to have our processes really slick, from getting up in the morning, potentially packing away the tent, getting on the bike, and being seamless with all of that, because, as I say, maximising our recovery is going to be key. So the less time we spend faffing, the more time we can spend recovering, and then that's going to build a day on day for our ride. And then number 10 is to enjoy it. I mean, what better way to see the world from a bicycle? So we're determined to enjoy the ride as well and get as much out of it as possible. And as I say, I really hope as many people can follow us around the world as possible. And as Stevie said, this isn't because we can do this, it's because we think we can. And it's that element of challenge that's really, really exciting. So we'll see. So I'd like to thank A Different Gear, who invited us here this evening, and we're very looking forward to participating in the All Points North ride later in the year too, which will be another exciting adventure. That's all our social medias, if anybody does want to see how we get on, and I'll invite Stevie up here as well, in case anybody's got any questions. Don't know if we should put the lights on as well. I can't actually see any of you at the moment, if you are waving at me.
So you do it completely unsupported responses?
So yeah, we just absolutely doing it completely unsupported. Unsupported is a tricky term because there's no definition between supported and kind of unsupported. It's like, where do you draw the line? If we stop somewhere and somebody offers us a bed and a meal for the night, do we turn that down, or we do accept that? And is that support or not? So I would probably say our ride isn't technically unsupported. I think Jenny Graham, and she was really, really rigorous about what she would accept, what she wouldn't. She had a friend come out to ride with her and things like that, and she was very much like, I will not accept it, I'm doing this by myself. I think we want to experience things too, so if we have people making gestures along the way, we don't want to turn them down, and we want to get as many experiences as possible. And there's things as well that arguing that if we are having kit drops around the world and picking up kit, that could be arguably kind of semi-supported too. But I think practically trying to carry the amount of kit we might need is, yeah. And yeah, there is no line drawn. So Mark Beaumont's amazing record was completely supported, but there's no difference between that and somebody that went out unsupported. So semi-supported, yeah. Any more for any more?
Thank you very much. Oh, it's really engaging and fantastic talk. I was wondering how you feel about the kind of adventure aspect of cycling, because you talked a lot about the kind of technical cycling aspects, but you're going to be going through some very foreign countries to
Yeah, so the adventure aspect, I think that's one of the bits we're looking forward to the most. And, you know, we have cycled abroad in France, all sorts of different places, but I think places like India, Thailand are really going to be quite mind-blowing. And I think you can't even underestimate the cultural differences in somewhere like the States, for example, too. So I think that's going to be, yeah, it's going to be another massive challenge. And I think we'll have some great experiences along the way. And it will be an interesting one because, yes, there will be a need to make progress every day. And I think it's going to, when we've spoken to people on like cycle touring forums, backpacking forums, people, oh, I know you're going to be missing out, you should go slower. But to me, I think this is like the most epic recce ever. And we'll just be going along, we'll go back here and we'll go back here and we'll go back there. So I think we will be able to get snapshots of lots of different places and hopefully have some great experiences along the way too, which hopefully won't be too prohibited by the nature of the trip.
Are you just going to kind of plan each day as it comes, or have you got set distance and destination in mind every day? You've got your route sorted out. Will you diverge from that route, or to stay in places, or will you try to stick to it?
I think the route, I think, is prone to diversion. I think we've always found when we've done a trip like this that somewhere along the way there's a road closed or something happens, or you get a local tip and they go, oh, don't go that way, go this way. And I think the route will be an adaptable beast as we go along. In terms of the day-to-day, I think it would potentially be a bit foolhardy to try and plan every day out as we go along. It could almost like set us up, because if we don't make a destination on a certain day, it'll be like, oh no, we need to. So I think we'll have to vary it given the terrain and the circumstance and things like that. I think we might be looking at more like a kind of a weekly average, and obviously every time we'll have flights booked at the airport. So hopefully, if we're making those, we'll know we're on track, as opposed to being very set in our kind of daily mileage.
It's more to do with time. So if we know we want to ride 10 hours a day, don't beat yourself up if there's a block headwind all day long, or you've got gradients or bad road surface. You might only do 80 miles that day, but you will get the days with the tailwind where you can do 150 miles. And that should average out, because I've got 180 days to get the average there. That will be the plan, apart from when we've got flights to catch.
Riding 100 miles at the age of 11 is massive. What inspired you to do that? What was your route?
Yeah, I joined a cyclist touring club because I got a bike for Christmas, and it was a road, an imitation racer as they were then in the 80s, late 80s on mine. Yeah, so I just got into it, and there wasn't many people into cycling, so I got into a cyclist touring club, and they were still imbued with the spirit of long distance cycling and weekends and camping and things. So there's a cycle rally in York, and it was the CTC rally, and yeah, I was in the club, started doing the Wednesday rides, then do the Sunday rides, and then say coming to York, and that was after school. I had to finish school and then go put a camping kit on the bike, all rubbish, old free stuff, and people had handed me down, and rode through the night on old ever-ready battery lights to York. That was my first 100 miler, and yeah, and then you just enjoy it when the speed of a bike you were talking about, when you're kind of traveling, so it never surprises you just how far you can go for your effort. Walking, you end up getting tired, and you go from 20 miles or 30 miles. It's a long way, but it's nowhere near as far as the distances you can do on a bike. And you get a good kick from that. Yeah, that type 2 fun.
What inspired the change from obviously long distance events that you've been doing to this extreme long distance event, and whose idea was it?
Yeah, I was ready to take it easy. And then Laura, so you can answer that.
It's not entirely true. I think it was a combination of factors. I think it has been linked in quite a lot with our recent lockdowns, and I had a change in job at the time. We were obviously locked down, and I think I we had to cancel a load of holidays, so my feet got massively itchy. And then we saw the tandem ladies come in that I mentioned at the beginning, and I just thought, wow, that is amazing. You know, they've done this. And then I looked at it and I thought, well, that is amazing. You know, they've done this. And I thought, I think we can go faster. So yeah, it might be a brave statement to make, but yeah, I think that kind of made me think. And then I mentioned the idea and you didn't say no enough. And then, yeah, things just kind of escalated from there, I think. And now we seem to be here now, so yeah. Not for any more.
Okay, what's your sort of training plan between now and then? Obviously, you've done a lot, I'm sure, 100-mile days. You go do one now, tomorrow, or whatever. Obviously, try and get some longer riding, like land jumps on approach, you've done 7 times, I guess.
I think
more similar things like that.
Well, it's quite an interesting question because no matter who you are, unless you've already retired or got a lot of free time, most people, if they've done long rides, it probably stops at like 2 weeks, a 2-week holiday. They go, well, I've just done, you know, 1,000 miles in 2 weeks or 100 mile a day, or shorter events, which are more intense, which are over in sort of 70, 80, 90 hours. So there is a massive unknown of just trying to get into expedition mode and going, can we carry on? You know, I imagine we'll feel tired at 2 weeks like you would have through a normal tour, and then you've got to go, this is the day job. And it's just because other people have done it, and you go, well, I don't think they're any different to myself and Laura, so if we've got the long focus, we should do it. So in training terms, I've got more time than Laura because she's worked so hard, and I will just sort of build myself up to regular 400-mile weeks and then keep that constant, you know, so try and get 50, 60 miles a day and then a longer ride at the weekend. And Laura will do what she can, but she will do the longer rides as well. But you can't fit in as many miles as me. But you've seen the photo, yeah. But I will rev it up. Really, we've got quite a lot happening from between now and September. And if we can complete the All Points North, which is a kind of a do it yourself 1,000-kilometer ride in 72 hours. If we can get around that, then we know our fitness level is really strong as a team. And then you kind of want to plateau or just go steady through the winter. Can't carry on training then. We'll just try and keep really fit and then build it up again next spring and have a good rest through May and then start really. So that would be a non-scientific, but it's worked for me in the past kind of way.
How difficult will it be by then?
Well, it should, because we're trying to do it fast. It's only 6 months. It's actually, in beard terms, that's actually a very short period of time. So maybe one more band in the beard. Come back with 4. So yeah, or I might have to plait it. Laura's working on it. Yeah, it will slow us down, but yeah, it's just an extra challenge then, isn't it?
I saw you earlier and I knew it must be you guys.
It's even on the globe as well, if you look carefully. Yeah. Made it on.
All right, guys, thank you very much for coming.